Testing, testing. 1, 2, 1, 2. Audio check 1, 2. And that, my friends, sounds like a successful audio check to me. Give me one moment. We'll be live in just a second. Thank you all for your patience as we get things started. How you all doing out there? Alright, looks like everything is all set. I'm opening up my last little bit here, and we should be all good to go. Good morning, everyone. I am the last Omnitect, your favorite robot American, and welcome to another live-streamed art stream for Omni Draws Gentry Delon Ain't No Fascist, a Helldivers 2 webcomic. Hello, everyone! Big thank you to everyone who's tuning in, who's been reading the webcomic. You all can find it for free to read on my current Patreon at patreon.com/TheLastOmnitect. Or, if you want to just go directly to the webcomic, you can actually read the entire thing right here at this collection. I'll just grab this text. Right here, at that link. Please feel free to give it a read. It's been an incredibly fun read, and I've been very much enjoying it. But we're here to do a little bit of artwork. So again, a huge thanks to my incredible patrons at Tier 1, that's Ampersand, Heinrich, and Atlas, and my incredible Tier 2 patrons, Necronomulus and Souls Rolls. You all are incredible. And please, if you guys want to see more art streams and more webcomic work from me, as well as also TTRPG work, indie game work, hobbying, and all my creative pursuits, please feel free to follow me on patreon.com/TheLastOmnitect. Believe me, your every penny helps. I'm poor. This is my primary source of income. This helps a lot. So, and of course the camera doesn't turn on now. Camera? There we go. Ha ha! Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing well today. I am doing grand. It has been a beautiful day. Been running around like a maniac, biking, doing all the usual stuff. But we're here now. Together. You and I. So, let's get to the actual gaming part of it, the art of it. So for those of you guys who don't know, my webcomic, Gentry Delon Ain't No Fascist, is built around following the plot of a Helldiver who has turned against Super Earth and has become traitor and is working behind the scenes in an attempt to facilitate the automatons and their victory over Super Earth if it ever happens. It is meant to be a disassembly of fascism and authoritarianism and resistance and the struggles therein, as well as also the game itself, which is, by the way, incredible. If you have not played Helldivers 2, and you can, and you have any interest at all in either, like, third-person shooters, any first-person shooter at all, horde shooters, or really like Starship Troopers or sci-fi, and especially parody, go give it a look. We're not sponsored in any way, shape, or form by Arrowhead. I am not sponsored by any shape, way, or form by Arrowhead. Though Arrowhead, just saying, if you're listening, I do take card. I'll gladly. I will 100%. In the meantime, though, I've got a little bit of work I've been doing on some of the sub-factions. So, I showed this a little bit last time when I was working on the webcomic, but there's a whole bunch of factions at work inside of the webcomic, with Gentry stuck in the middle of the Ministry of Truth, the Truth Enforcers, Human Defectors, the Cult Meridian, eventually, Seep High Command, the Ministry of Expansion, and of course the Automatons, including the Coordinator, who leads a large swath of them, and the Vanguard Forces, who are like a specialist group that he works with. But today we're focusing on a very specific group, the TRA. So, the TRA, also known as the Terminid Restoration Alliance, are a particularly fun group. I basically like the idea of a bunch of environmentalists who have more or less turned on Super Earth after working to help them basically genetically engineer and modify Terminids to increase their yield and make them more pliant, and then realizing when the Terminids are more like, when they're a little chiller and less vicious, they actually show signs of intellect and actually might be able to be manipulated, or more importantly, negotiated with, that they show signs of sapience. And Super Earth didn't like that, so chased them off. So the TRA are now a bunch of basically starving scientists trying their best to work with Terminids to survive. But this isn't like a purely perfect relationship here. Terminids are still largely a hive-driven insectoid species. They are very much built around murder and slaughter. That's kind of their whole thing. They're like ants. It's not their fault you're not an ant, but you aren't an ant, so therefore you're probably going to get eaten. Last week we worked on the Myrmidon here, which is one of the specific unique strains of the Terminids that work with the TRA. And for the record, the TRA kind of hides amongst this substrain of the Terminids known as the Emissary strain, a variant that they've been slowly developing for a long time, and now it's kind of gone wild. And they live within proximity of them because they have devices that allow them to communicate. So, those devices, and we should probably talk about it very fast, if I just pop this off, that would be the Rosetta device. So, the Rosetta device, we need to just move this up a tad. So the Rosetta device is an interesting little gadget. It basically allows people to directly communicate with Terminids using a series of pheromone cues, lights, sounds, and simulated, like, heat and electromagnetism. Basically, it speaks Terminid for you. But roughly, it's more like a speak and spell that you jam the commands into, and it sort of releases vague commands, and Terminids have to sort of interpret it more directly. So it'd be kind of like if you were going to visit China and the only thing you had that spoke Chinese was your phone, and so you just programmed to say, hello, where is bathroom, where is, and then like a list of locations, go, please, thank you, and you just sort of like push those buttons as you go. And the Rosetta device allows reverse communication, but it's very vague. So there are issues with it. Likewise also, it must be said that should, at any point, the Rosetta device break, that would be a bad day for whoever was stuck with it. Let's zoom out so we can talk a little more about the TRA. So yeah, pheromones, lab-grown brood commander scent glands, and a number of other tools. But the biggest issue is if it ever were to fail, you'd be a human standing among Terminids. And Terminids, on reflex, kill humans as a baseline. The emissary brood are not nearly as vicious as other Terminids are, as other Terminid strains are, but they still will defend themselves. At very best, you will be chased out of wherever you are, like a guard dog chasing you off of someone's property. At very worst, you'll be torn apart, because you can't get clear in time. You can't be free and safely escape. Which is a very real concern. So, as a result, the TRA, since their only real shelter is to hover within these Terminid broods, the best thing they can do right now is just sort of hope the devices work and perfect them as best as they can. So, we've talked a lot about the TRA and their tools. They're mostly like scavengers and more or less civilians and scientists who've become militants out of necessity. They're not hardened, they're not brilliant. I mean, they are smart, but they're not seasoned soldiers. For the most part, they're just folks wearing like simple slicker jackets and research tech and research gear, and they're basically just trying to endure intense and hidden in squalor and secret around Super Earth's holdings. They're not very well positioned to fight Super Earth directly, and so they just survive. They build encampments and they take cover within these larger emissary strain hive structures, because the emissary strain is a terminid strain, and they actually can fight Super Earth to a degree. So it's kind of like a colony of it's like a small group of humans living in shark-infested waters and using that as a defense, but very aggressive land sharks. So that's our TRA factional like detail stuff. Let's pop over from that to the next thing we're going to be working on. I'm going to copy this. We're going to be making concept 4. And I have no idea what we're going to do for this. This is a complete fresh start. So we already did the Myrmidon, which is kind of like their ambush predator variant. I like the idea that this is somewhere between a charger and a terminid like captain in terms of how they function. I would say also a little bit of an impaler. So these things burrow underground and hide in waiting, and then when vehicles or large like seismic effects happen, it triggers them to leap out and ambush whatever they come across. They have very highly developed rear legs and very highly developed front grabbing legs, strong enough to crush a person easily, but they're really made for assailing light vehicles and exos. They can even pull pelicans from the sky if they can get the leap on them. So these things hide around places where vehicles will go by, or hide by like hive structures, and their heavily armored body and their bulk is enough to, on a lunge, lock down a vehicle. Usually they operate in pairs, so that way if they're fighting exos, each one can get a limb and sort of pull it down, drag it down, or they can grab different parts of a vehicle, or a wing even. They're still relatively like a somewhat smaller terminid form. They're not nearly as big as some of the larger categorized terminids, so there's still a limit to what they can accomplish. They're also very heavily armored. So even though they're not super offensively strong, they kind of get a one-off. They're like they're like I said Trap-Inch, Pokemon jokes. They're almost like antlions in that way. They lie in wait and then they snap and grab someone, or like trapdoor spiders. But in this particular instance, the other thing that they do is they act as guardians for their hives. So these things use their incredibly dense shells, which are pretty heavily armored. Again, I'm figuring we're talking charger durability here. So it would take heavy weapons to effectively demolish them, or really high penetration weapons. And there are a few that aren't heavy weapons that do that. But as a result, these things, you have to exploit their vulnerable points, which are largely their glowing organs, their rear, turn them around, that kind of thing. But for the most part, they act like mobile cover. So the TRA can operate around them. These guys leap out, engage in ambush vehicles, which would overwhelm the TRA's defense lines, while the TRA open fire with ranged weaponry, and then move up supported by Myrmidons who act like mobile cover, with their super heavy frills and thick armor plating. So that's the last Terminid design I did. And again, I need to emphasize, none of this is official. This is all from the webcomic. So let's work on a new idea. So we don't have a name for this thing yet. So we're just going to pop in and just going to put a couple of question marks on here. All right, when it doesn't have the question mark thing. Okay, that'll do. And then we have all this. Emissary Strain Terminid Morph. I'm just going to put this with an asterisk there. Question mark. And question mark. So, the Terminid Restoration Alliance relies largely on stealth, which probably means that these guys are not going to be nearly as aggressive as a lot of other Terminids are. Rule of thumb, for the most part, Terminids are not... Like, they're tactically aware, but their tactics are built around swarm tactics. Well, the emissary strain is still not as widespread as many other Terminid strains are, and as a result, there's few of them. They value their own durability and survival significantly more, so I imagine for them, laying low is where the majority of their survival has come from. As such, I'm thinking we're going to try a Stalker variant. We already have like an ambush predator, kind of you didn't know it was here, now it's in your face sort of thing. So I figure other variations that they would have would be Stalkers and Hunters. So this is where I'm going to start, like, opening up my Terminid files on the side. So, okay. Stalker. You've all played the game before, and if you haven't, well, here you go. Stalker. Horrifying thing, really. These things are nightmare fuel, writ large. They are perhaps some of the most durable of the larger, like, Terminids you can encounter, in terms of, like, I shouldn't say the most durable. I should say they're certainly more durable than the average person can kill in a few seconds. They're certainly one of the fastest, and they possess active camouflage. Which means these guys can sprint across the distance and have a very powerful, like, flail tongue effect that if they hit you, slows you. So they hit you, send you flying, you're slowed, they sprint after you, and they can kill you very, very quickly. They are very much an ambush predator. I kind of like the idea of a less aggressive variation of them. As we've kind of had the Myrmidon here, doing its sort of, it sort of is serving already as, like, the really resilient ambush predator. So in this case, we need an observant thing. I like the idea of an assassin, which is already what, like, the Stalker does to a degree as I fling my little pen out of the way. But let's go a little further with it. Let's take this in a totally other direction. First off, I need to take the Partisan here, and we're going to scale them down a bit. Because they are... If this is a Stalker breed, it needs to be bigger than that. Okay, that should do. We're going to save this fast. Nice. Okay. So we're going to keep him out here. Let's get to work on the actual shape. So Terminid, question mark, question mark, question mark. We have our swatches here, which are still perfectly good. They will do fine. They will provide us with the color profiles we need to do what we got to do. So let's start with deleting our shade layer, our other shade layer, our general shape layer, our Terminid glows, and our emissary colors, and the highlights that we have. And then finally our shadow layer. Alright. So now that we've undone all the work I've done previously, let's get to work on the actual shape of these things. So if we're dealing with a Stalker, we need a mechanism by which they can hunt and kill Helldivers or Sief enemies at longer range. I like the idea of these things. Their primary purpose isn't to sneak up and ambush people. Again, we have the Myrmidon for that. The Myrmidon does that job perfectly fine. Instead, what we need is something that's designed to lure away the attention of humans. We can do that. We can make that work. We're going to take the watermark here and just move it a little bit out over here. There we go. Just for the moment. Okay. So what if these guys were a different kind of ambush predator? Their whole purpose here being not to drag someone out and murder them, but instead to draw enemies away. So if we have the general shape, which we're going to put this at like 45, 75 is fine. 75. Okay, so they have this very specific sort of body mechanic, and it sort of turns up a little bit. Okay, so I'm just drawing out a rough Stalker body here. One of the most terrifying things to see in Helldivers is one of these things sprinting at you. Like, truly nightmare fuel kind of stuff. Alright, so we have our lower abdomen. And I'm just sort of taking a look to see how the legs interact. They both seem to join about here. So we have one strong leg here. Another strong leg here. Not nearly as strong as this one, though. As this one comes up. And then it has this very strong point that goes down into the ground. It's very, very meaty. Like, these back claws are terrifying. The implication is this thing can leap a phenomenal distance, and we know it can because they also have wings. They're one of the few Terminids that just out of the gate has wings. Okay, so then we have this other one. These ones are adapted more as, like, walking claws. They sort of stabilize the creature. Then we have this sort of, like, slightly more notched shape as this reaches up. Then we have these big, incredibly strong claws that are actually segmented upon further investigation, which is very intriguing. I love the designs of these. Like, there's something very evocative about how well they've made the Stalker. Most of the other Terminids have, like, a pretty one-to-one, like, ant comparison. You can pretty clearly see they're, like, ants of some kind. Or, you know, dung beetles in the case of the Charger. But Stalkers, the closest maybe you can get is a Mantis. But even that's not adequate. They are truly their own beast, and horrifying, to make that very clear. So we have this very strong abdominal body, and I'm not going to stick too close to the original, like, design schema, because we don't need to. We're making a variation, so as a result, we can do whatever we gotta do. So I like the idea of maybe doing this from, like, a 3/4 view, because otherwise we're going to be missing a lot of the body. And we'll have the other one coming up here. There we are. Which means we can have the other arm coming up about here. Okay, cool. And that'll sort of allow us to keep the shape properly. Then we have the, like, they have these really powerful underarms here, which are literally like mantis limbs. They literally hold them under here. As these giant ripping scythes. Designed to rend armor. Just gonna sharpen that out. And then they've got these wings. These massive butterfly-like wings. Which are very pretty, but very horrifying to deal with. And then the head, which is this very specific, frilly kind of shape to it. Okay, so we've got a pretty good silhouette here. But let's add some more spikes and stuff onto it. So I'm going to do my best to try to combine this with another creature that we often see, which is the Spitter. I'm just going to make sure I've got this. I need to find the right creature. Spitter, Charger, Bile Spewer. That's what they're called. So the Spitter and the Spewer are two different sides of the same coin. So I like the idea. I'm not sure I want to have it be acidic, so I might use the nursing spewer. There's a part of me that's like, I would really like to see a like horrifying terminid variation of the nursing spewer where it has like way more acid. Or more like, not even acid, like maybe fire? I could do that. Literally be like a fire or a napalm kind of variation. Okay, so we've got the general shape, so let's get some spikes on this thing. So there's this part of me that really likes the idea of, like, it having little claws. So that'll, like, immediately make this a little more distinct from the traditional ones that normally don't have any claws. I like that idea that these limbs aren't used for slashing, they're used for climbing. We do still want to keep the vicious slashing talons, as they are a serious hallmark of the species. It would completely change their aesthetic to not have those spikes. Because I imagine, like, terminid morphology can change, like, dramatically, but even they wouldn't change the thing that makes a creature function effectively, anyhow. So you've already got these, like, really sharpened scythes, kind of. We have the back limbs here. Beautiful. Let's get our spines here. We'll do the same thing here. And we can have this sort of like armored upper claws here. I like the idea that even the stalkers of this variation are more thicky. I will say thicky. They're almost like very thickly armored or heavier armored than your average one would be. But maybe that's me being a little overkill on the design aesthetic. I'll keep them a little sharper. They're still armored, but they're very much more built around being sneaky. So the whole purpose of these guys is they're going to be leading enemies like Super Earth away from their hive structures. Their sole purpose is to be a gigantic distraction. So when Super Earth comes knocking, they get drawn away chasing these weird bugs as opposed to actually chasing real, like, hive structures. Much like when you're dealing with stalkers in the game, half the time they come from the other side of the map, away from where your objectives are, and it forces you to take a little time away, you need to hike out to deal with them. And they're a giant pain in the ass, to be completely honest. And I love them. Like, design-wise, game design-wise, it's a brilliant idea. Have an enemy that's so dire, you must deal with them. It's not even a maybe, it's a you have to. They must be dealt with, or you will not extract safely. And there we go. I'm going to add some extra thorns and stuff to track it into the rest of the design scheme that we've got going. Okay, cool. So you got a pretty good design here. Let's get to the next step, which is going to be our shade layer. So this is where we start hitting this thing's like body mechanics up. Okay. Alright, so let me just take a look at this thing. Okay. So I'm going to put this at 45. And we're going to just reduce the original opacity here down a little bit. $35 will do. And we're going to be messing around with this a lot. So I'm not in any particular rush. I'm not really worried. Whenever you're drawing something, especially something that you're just sort of inventing as you go, I highly recommend take your time. Trust me, it will pay dividends. Okay, so now we're going to get down here, get this shape solidified out. Now I'm going to block out this right here with the goal eventually of like modifying it a little bit so that it can be more easily read. But for now, we're just sort of stick bugging it. There we go. Okay. So you've got this general shape here. And let's start getting on a higher level here. I'm going to go to the actual, like, carving highlight, just so I can sort of do a little work here. 25, so I can see where things overlap. Let's make that a little stronger. 45 should do nicely. Okay. So this is going to let us know exactly how things sit, so I don't have to worry about, like, in what way does this sit on top of the other part? Is this visible or not? Like, no, it's going to be fine. I got it. And this will mean that as I'm filling stuff out, I won't get lost, which is the big thing. That's my biggest fear. Especially when you're dealing with drawing stalkers, these things are like a million little limbs all flailing and twitching and just going ham. And that can be a problem, especially when you're dealing with a large, like, body already. And they're pretty big. So by doing this, I'm just sort of cutting to the chase here. I do the same thing here. Okay, cool. So we've got that. We can now clearly see where those parts are. Let's go over here. We're going to do the same thing. We need to also see where this little hand is. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to have our spines. Okay, we got that. We're going to go up here and sort of catch some of these pieces. They're going to come down. Cool. Alright, and then we take these parts down. Cool. And that's going to go to about here. So we have our two big overarching limbs. We have our rear claws, our rear talons now, which are very strong. Now, part of me wants to have like a long distance kind of stabby bit. I just don't know how I would do that. I think the best thing I could do... I'm just doing my best to sort of look at this and sort of see how it would work. And we do the same thing here. You have this lower abdomen section here. Connect up. And then we have this back part here go down. Then we have the actual like carapace sort of lock in. And then we have these little like wing things that come down. I really love the way their heads are shaped. They got this really cool kind of like sliding carapace thing going on for them, which is really freaking awesome. And then it sort of comes down into this head. The head I'm going to take a lot of liberties with. A lot. So if you folks are going to be watching this and like, oh, that's not how a Tyranid looks, you're right. That is it. I have to draw this repeatedly over and over again. I'm not a game engine, so I've got to actually work within my ability to draw. I do like the jaw, though. I want to keep elements of the jaw uniform across the entirety of the emissary hive, which means I need eyes. More than anything, I need eyes. Like, that's not a maybe. It's a definite, like, it's gotta happen. And I figure we'll keep them with, like, the super heavily armored jaws. Because that feels like a very easy way to differentiate them. Okay, we have the eyes here. I'm gonna give them... I give them 3 pairs. Okay, now we can go back to the shade layer and get to work. Okay, now we can sort of just stick that in. We have the little meat sections that connect. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing here. We're just going to fill this all in. This part's going to be easy, because it's just one giant blast of black. It's the shading that's going to be a nightmare on this thing. I can already tell you the shading is going to be horrific. It's going to be tough to draw this. There's a part of me that wants to do, like, the active camouflage, but I'll save that for the comic. There's ways to convey that that'll look really good. And then ways to draw here. This is not to do the active camouflage effect. I might do, like, what active camouflage looks like in progress, but this should be fine. Okay, we just fill this whole area in. Bring the jaws down. So I like the idea of this thing firing some kind of tendril or spike over a long distance. And its job is really more to draw attention. Like, it'll still kill things, it's kind of a sniper, but its purpose is less to kill and more to distract and draw people off on a merry little chase. And either drag them into deeper hive territory where they can be ambushed and properly disposed of, or draw them completely away. Probably a little of A and a little bit of B if we're being completely real with ourselves. Okay, so we've got a pretty good, like, silhouette for how big this thing is gone. Let's get this thing's shell going. Alright. Now we're gonna get this to 45 and just start working on it. Okay, we're going with that nice armored, like, roach-like brown almost, or beetle brown. Then we have the sharpened blades. And the edge of the blades is going to be the brightest part. So there's going to be some segments on this thing that are actually going to just be like normal terminid meat insect parts. We'll get there when we get there. Now, stalkers are largely meaty. Their back legs are almost like crab legs a little bit. Where they're thick and they're almost fleshy. I'm gonna do away with that. These guys will be very heavily armored through and through here. Okay, cool. So we've got ourselves a pretty good start. Let's keep going. Okay, and we can again sharpen this out a little bit. There we go. We pull this in. Give ourselves a nice little, like, armored segment. Same thing here. And we're going to add a lot of shading to this. This is eventually going to start looking a lot more logical. Shit. I can see it's already created an error. Yep, it's created an error. That's frustrating. Alright, we can go back in and fix that, but that's going to be a problem. It really did a number, too. I don't know how it did that. That's very frustrating. Alright, we can work around it. Okay, just go down here, remove all that where I can, save it, and now do our best to repair it. I love redoing work I've done already. It's always great. Truly the mark of a skilled artist. The I gotta do this shit again energy. The I can, but goddamn, I gotta do this shit again. Okay. Swap that out. We're going to go in here again with this. We're going to save it. And we're going to get to it. There we go. Cool. That looks pretty good. Okay, so our limbs are looking alright. It's still a little overly crabby, but we can work with that. And we can come back over this later and hit this with brighter colors. Alright, cool. So it's coming along nicely. Let's get the white here. And now we're going to actually get into the shapes. We're going to reduce the carving layer here a little bit. There we go. Save this. Alright, so we're going to put this at 45%. Make sure it is all good to go. Beautiful. And now that we've got this thing properly lined out, we can do a little more visiting of the brighter colors. This is a stalker, and these have much, much lighter shells than the majority of Terminids. So we're kind of working within that. Okay, we're looking pretty decent, One of the things I've always found very interesting about the Terminids is they are the victims of the story 100% more than anyone else. More than any of the humans, more than any of that. Very much like the original Starship Troopers, where you're meant to empathize with them. And I think that's one of those things people often miss in the original Starship Troopers. Are like, ooh, evil bugs. But then you, like, actually look at the framing of the movie. And you realize they're the least evil thing there. They're vibing on their planets. They're doing their own thing. It's humanity that comes and invades them. The idea that a bug meteorite could get past an entire orbital defense grid without being shot, after having arrived so slowly, is ludicrous. We detect shit now pretty far away from Earth. It takes a lot for something that big to get that close and nobody noticed. Enough to wipe out, what is it, Buenos Aires? The Latin Paradise. Like, in order to do that, it takes so much to actually eliminate that. I'm going to just pop in here and see where it goes. Okay, so right there, right there, right there, and right there. Nice. We're going to go into the carving highlights. Sort of remove that where we can. Cool. So we can get real close in with these. I'm going to get to 75 now. Because these are the edges of the blades. I want to sharpen these. We're going to give it a really grody kind of effect very soon. But for now, this will do. %. Very nice. So that gives us a nice keening edge to those talons, which we should have. Because again, it's a stalker variant. These things are horrific. Namely because, with very little time, they can take a person and turn them into dog food. And it's quite a horrifying sight. Anyone who's played Helldivers knows exactly what I'm talking about, where you're like, oh yes, I'm safe, and 5 seconds later, you hear the sound of your Helldivers screaming before you die. You don't even really know what's killing you, you just are dead before you have a chance to react. There we go. We can sort of color the undersides of this a little better. And by doing this, this gives us a little more sharpness, makes those talons seem a little bit more lumpy and harder edged. We're going to flip this. And we're going to have this sort of go underneath there and keep it with like a harder edge. We'll do the same thing here. That at like 75 here for the hardest edges. That's going to come to here. Beautiful. Okay, now we've got the shape of that head pretty well, like, charted out. I actually like the way that turned out. So anybody who's currently in the chat, what is your favorite Terminid to fight if you're playing Helldivers? Like, what's your favorite design? Maybe not even a fight. What's your favorite design of Terminid? That's probably fair. Most people don't have a favorite Terminid, and if they do, it's usually, you know, it's an aesthetic thing. What is your favorite Terminid, like, aesthetically speaking? What's your favorite variation on them? Do you have one? I am curious. For me, I've really wanted to, like, interact more with the Spore ones, but every time that, like, there's a chance to push for the Spore Terminid, like, battles, it's never on a weekend that I'm available. I'm always out of town or doing something. Something always feels like it comes up whenever they have the spores, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll catch it next time, and then I just miss it next time, too. It's a curse. It's a curse. I'm not allowed to enjoy the spore terminids. They look so cool. The mycelial terminids. I can't remember what they're called off the top of my head. It's like a specific variation of them. Let's see. Variants. Predator. It's not the Predator. It's the Gloom ones. Let me take a look and see. There's like a specific sub-variant. Spore Burst. That's what they're called. Spore Burst. The Spore Burst terminals look the coolest. IMO. I genuinely love their design. I think they are really wicked cool. And I think it's a shame we don't get to interact with them more. And I get why. Like, I think they're trying to balance them still. But, come on, they look so freaking cool. Let me shoot them. Let me interact with them, please. Okay, then we've got these talons here. Let me pull this down. And then we grab this. And that's going to be the back leg here. Which are horrifyingly huge and so wicked cool. Then we have this back plating here, which I haven't really done much with, and I'm probably not gonna. We're just gonna let the vaguing of it look good. And hey, good to see you, Randomil. How you doing? Thank you, I appreciate it. Trying to draw some terminids for the webcomic. Drawing some bugaboos. You want some spooky bugaboos that are stealthy and camouflaged, and I very much like the way that it's turning out so far, but I need to do a little bit more to make it really pop. So, but not too bad for a few minutes work. How have you been doing today? As we just sort of carve this down a little bit. Put that at 25%. Also, I'm super excited to play the next episode with you. I've been very much enjoying Blades in the Dark. Those of you who don't know, Randomil, awesome person, is actually on Blades in the Dark with me on Ampersand Productions' Blade in the Dark game. Which is an actual play game. Very fun. If you're a fan of games like Dishonored and such, you will love the setting. It's a really good game. It's creeping me out, but going well. Good, thanks. I was very excited to play again. Heck yeah, me too. Alright, let's get on our emissary colors here. I want to actually do a little bit of the green. So actually I need to get the eyes done too. So let's start with this part right here. I'm just gonna pop in, put this at 75. We're gonna hit some eyes up in here. I want to keep the eyes small on this guy. The eyes are the window to the soul, and we want this... I still want all the emissary swarm ones, the emissary strain ones, to actually have eyes, which is a very distinctive thing compared to a lot of the Terminids who do have eyes, but they're very hard to see. I want the eyes to be visible the whole time, even on Stalkers, which normally are just like a mess of tentacles and blades, because I think it makes them more humanized. It gives them that, like, moment of clarity of, like, oh, there's a creature there that can think, as opposed to just the bug you stomp on. Because I think that's a thing that is very unfortunate about a lot of science fiction. They just really like stomping on the bugs, and I get it. Stomping on bugs is necessary sometimes, but it always feels like it's a waste of potential when it comes to the narrative. Let's make that a 75 now. I'm gonna give it like the lion eyes, like the little like cat eyes almost. So that you can follow where they're looking. Also because that'll give them a better ability to aim, as opposed to like compound bug eyes, which are not very good at aiming. They're very good at seeing in all directions. But in terms of like shooting at a longer distance or seeing things at great distance, no, not really. Not really the thing. Like that Mickey 17, the bugs are very cool. Yeah. Let's zoom in here. Okay, so let's take the carving highlighting bit out here. You've already got more or less the head like complete. I'm going to leave almost the entirety of the face in shadow. I don't want anyone to know what the face of one of these things looks like. I want it to just be kind of a mess in there. Just like all the little bits you're not meant to see. No one's meant to see into here. Please don't look behind the curtain. And we're going to brighten this now. We're going to start doing a... We'll do lighten or lighter color. I think that's the right one to do. So let's widen it just a tad. Oh, this is on the carving highlight layer. Shite! Okay, let's do this again. It's like, wait, why is that? Everyone hates it. You gotta hate it when you're like, wrong layer, and you just keep going forever. He shot, yeah, he's wearing a little hoodie. He's wearing a little armored hoodie. Little shy guy. Just like the Mario shy guys, though, you don't want to piss him off. Okay, so we're gonna get the big, wide, like, almost goat eyes going, I'm realizing. They're kind of like... I don't know what animals have eyes like that, because they're not purely slits. They're more like goat eyes where they've got the square. There's just something a little off about them. I don't know, I'm digging it, though. I save that. And now we're going to get into the brightest possible light. This is going to be at 75, and we're going to do this as a hard light, or a vivid light. We'll do vivid light. There we go. Immediately make that stand out. I want that bright pupil to be visible from space. I want someone to go, I don't know much about what's going on in the comic with that thing's body, but I know exactly which direction it's looking at. Okay. Just, as you know, that little, like, the little side eye like dogs do when they just sort of... Alright, so we've got that more or less done. Let's get back to our shade layer here. Okay, so we got some options here. I like some of what's going on, and I don't like other parts of what's going on here. So let's futz around with it, see what we can get. 25%. We'll go onto our shade layer here. And we're just going to add some really strong shadows where we can, where they're necessary. The funny thing is there's like this area under here that's supposed to be like darkened a little bit, but it's very hard to get because you have this very bright edge there. Such a hard thing to draw, that particular type of join. But we'll get it done well enough. So all it needs to be just well enough to convey the image. Okay, that'll do. We'll do the same thing here with this. Beautiful. Okay, so our boy, who's basically a walking blend tech, don't breathe this, is more or less where he's supposed to be. Let's get some more shading done in certain areas. I want to get a little more shading on the undersides of, or on like the back edges of the horns, so they're a little clearer. There we go. We're also going to put a darker shade here onto that little bit. And in between the horns here, sort of denote the divot that's there, because there is a divot. Okay, and then one little bit right here. Cool. So he's looking alright. We've got a pretty good shading situation going on. It looks very unnerving, but that's the point. Despite the fact that he's not really made for, like, direct combat, his whole thing is to be super scary, so when he pops out and goes boo and shoots a bunch of guys with needles that are probably not going to kill anybody but piss a lot of people off, he then flees and hopes everybody falls and gets away from the hive nest. Turns out fighting guys with, like, submachine guns, you know, bug projectiles aren't really as dangerous. Okay, and we can sort of get that on there, and get that there. Cool. Alright, so it's still a mess of limbs, but it's a mess of limbs with direction. That's the big thing here. It's a mess of limbs with actual direction. And we're also going to get under here and sort of add some extra layers of darkness. There's a shadow layer here. I'm going to hit that with a 10% and just start going to town. On every part that should not be very pronounced. Okay, we're going to sort of hide the backs of these arms, because these are those scything talons that they have. There we go. That'll do. And we'll do the same thing with the underside of these limbs. We want them to be very dark. We don't want them to be super bright. That way they will blend in more with the background, then I can always go over this later. And there's like a little area under there that just needs to be darker. So we're going to go into our general shape and just fill that out. I believe I said... Oh, there we go. It's on vivid light. That explains why. That'll do it. That will do it. We're going to go into the shade layer. Darken that a little more. Cool. And now I'm just going to add the little fleshy bits there. We should be good. Cool, so let's get some coloration going. Is there any particular bug or insect I should use for this? Because I'm trying to avoid the roach. Like, that's the base carapace color already. Most of the stalkers, as they're called, have this very super vibrant color scheme. If we're talking predator stalkers, they have this like hyper orange sort of thing going, whereas, like, yeah, this is a predator stalker. It is super vicious orange, white, black, and green, whereas the traditional ones are a little bit more muted, almost no green, but super, super vivid. So, like, I want that for these guys. I feel like I should lean into the green for this and flip the colors. So, as opposed to the Predator Stalker, which has, like, green meat and orange, like, flare, I should reverse that and make it green flare, orange meat. And I think that would work. As far as chromatophores go, I don't know how I'm going to capture that, but I'll figure it out. There we go. And we'll make sure that all the little, like, meat parts are properly connected. There we go. Alright. So we got all the limbs properly locked out. Let's get our Terminid glow going. So I have a lovely little swatch up here, which is perfect for this. So we're going to start with you. And we're going to start by adding some coloration here. My rule of thumb is draw segments with insects, especially with terminids, but like generally speaking, anytime you're drawing a bug, like draw segments. Basically everything is abs. Everything is abs TM. That's the best way to view terminids and most other insects. Everything is abs. Okay, we're going to give them like the implication of mandibles. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, though. We're going to have the underside of the abdomen here. It's going to have that nice, like, fluorescent glow. That looks good. We're going to get into the meat here. And add that orange that the terminids always have. They have like this very specific E710 glow. E710 being the chemical that is naturally stored in their bodies, and I just love that. Okay. The wings I'm going to leave as part of the flare. I want the flare to be that bright green. So I kind of want to add like frills on the side, but I really like the way its head looks. So I might add that as a layer on top. Okay. Alright. I think I've got it. Let me just get in here and erase some of this where I can. There we go. That looks pretty decent now. Now we know what the head actually looks like. Without all the highlighting on there. Okay. So we're going to get back to that Terminid glow. We're going to go to the next layer up. And usually the rule of thumb is the glow is strongest in their core. So where your body heat would be at peak, that's kind of where they're at. And let me just fix my camera. There we go. Oh, hold on. There we are. That's what I'm looking for. Put that at 25. So the deeper towards the core I go, the brighter it's going to be. And we're going to add the little strings. And this is where we're going to start adding like the implication of sinew. A lot of drawing isn't really drawing the thing. It's drawing the implication of the thing. It's like, oh yes, there's shading that would imply there's this thing there. It isn't really there, but it's there enough to fool the eye. I believe the phrase for that is trompe l'oeil, literally fool the eye. I am so horrible with French. If it were Spanish, I'd nail it, but it's not, so I'm screwed. But yes, literally trick the eye. Hold on. Let's listen to the machine say it. Trompe-l'oeil. There we go. Trompe-l'oeil. I'm gonna let this thing try. Oi, I hate that. Hate that with a passion. Must everything always have ads everywhere? Okay. Mute.
We are looking at how to pronounce.
Just say the word.
This phrase. Trompe-l'œil.
Trompe-l'œil. There we go. That's how it's said. Trompe-l'œil. It's so strange because it's L-O-il. Trompe-l'œil. And it just sounds weird. It sounds like you're stroking out when you're saying it, but it is like that's the word. That's the word. Literally to fool the eye. Okay, so we've got a little bit of this. Let's get some more color in here. So these guys are going to be very vivid and bright, and then once they ambush, they turn on their chromatophores and begin to sort of back away, just visible enough to pursue until they get far enough away to actually fully disappear in camouflage. Because I'm thinking about my experiences playing Helldivers when I make this comic. Literally everything is Helldivers related. The whole thing is a Helldivers tribute comic. It's a Helldivers comic generally, and so as a result, I'm served by that urge. And my thought is, every time we ever encountered a stalker ever that didn't kill someone outright, usually its biggest frustration is it would stab you and then go dancing away so quickly you just can't catch it. And you're like, okay, I guess that's my life for the next few minutes. I'm just gonna have to be hunting this goofy thing. And it's a great way to, like, draw you off of mission. So I like the idea that that's their sole objective with these. Their sole objective is to get your fucking attention, and then once they have it, run as fast as they can away with it. Make you waste as much time as possible hunting them down. And so long as you never have time to get back to their nest, they're happy. Okay, so we've got a pretty good glow going on. Let's get it stronger, shall we? I happen to have a hard light here. We'll use that. So I'm going to leave the limbs there pretty much intact. I don't need to do much more with them. But here, where things are going to be the brightest, because the body temperature is basically at its peak. We're going to have the brightest, most intense parts of this effect. Okay, so that's hard light. Let's get this over to normal. Put this in 15 and start getting the glow going. There we go. Now we're starting to get somewhere. I'm going to get onto the carving highlighting section and just start erasing some of this. cool. So we've got ourselves a nice little glow here. Very muscular in that area, which is something I want. I want these guys to have, like, a ripped neck. Which they should. Like, look how big their head is. That upper body is literally just slouching all the time. They've got to have crazy shoulder muscles and abdomen muscles. Abdominals. Abdominals. Okay, so we've got a pretty strong glow there, but we're not strong enough yet. Let's make it more intense. Let's do this as hard light. And we're almost there. We're actually getting ready to finish up our stream. I'm really happy with how this is turning out. Let's get the brightest possible white in there. Put that at like 75%. Literally fill this guy with like the explosive E710 juice. Nice. So that's a very vivid glow. Now we just have one last thing to do, which is our emissary colors. This is where things get fun. I'm going to add this one more time. We're going to duplicate this layer here. Cool. So now we're going to get into the emissary colors. We're going to erase this section completely. And now we're going to start adding a very fun splotchy effect. Sprays and splatters. This is usually how I tend to do it. Like I'll grab a good brush and I'll sort of go to town. That'll do. And then as need be, I can go back over it and erase it where it needs to be erased. And we'll add a little bit of the green towards the edges here. Wherever these spikes are, basically. Okay. So we've got that. Pretty good. Let's go in with the next layer. Put this at like 25. The best part is by doing this again, I can just sort of go back in and just shred whatever I can't use later. We're going to go back in again with a little bit of this. Do this as a lighten. Go back again, this time with the brightest of shades. And in a minute, this is going to look good, because right now it's very foggy. It almost looks like bees or swarm of some kind. I'm kind of about that, actually. The weird, foggy, misty effect is kind of cool. Hey, Ito! Nope, you're not too late. You're just in time, actually. I am finishing the last little details of our boy here. Wanted to make a stalker variation specifically for these guys. How are you doing today, Ito? You doing good? I kinda like the weird, buggy, almost like fog effect around them. It's like a miasma. I might make it where these things leave a miasma behind them. Maybe that would be a good idea. Like a spore stalker? Oh, that's so messed up, a spore stalker. What would you call that? Yeah, okay, going through the week of my own pace. That is such a mood. That is such a mood. Alright, so we're on the emissary color layer. My pleasure. My pleasure. Alright, so let's clear this out here. As we just cut the little details away we're not going to use. There we go. Cool. So this is looking pretty good so far. And we're going to sort of go in and erase all this excess. Sort of just hanging out on the edge. And when we're done, this should look good. This should look good. And please, Ito, you can call me Omni. Gentry is the character. Me, I'm the last Omnitech. But I do use Gentry when I'm on the forums, just so folks know I'm the guy who makes that comic. Makes things easier. Especially when you start getting with all the folks that are literally just don't pay attention. Just a little frustrating at times, and you're like, oh no, come on guys, like you like the hell out of the comic, you know, pay attention please. But it's okay. It's okay. I'm just gonna die. Slowly. Steadily. Yeah, no, you're good, Ito. You're good. For what it's worth, I don't mind being called that when I'm playing Helldivers, though. And I am in the process still of working on the audio documentary, so that's gonna be fun. Not the audio documentary, sorry. The audio, I guess the video, like, recaps? The visual log? I guess the vid logs? How would I describe that? Either way, those things. Those things are coming out soon. That's gonna be fun. I am waiting for the last of August to erode away, because it has been pretty much constant work for me. Which I'm very much looking forward to my birthday this month and getting to relax and kick back a little bit. Let's reduce the opacity on this so I can actually see what I'm erasing. There we go. Alright, there we go. So we can get on there, get under there. Let's see. Walks off stage to be blown up. Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. No need to apologize. We all good. I'm ready to relax. I am so ready to relax. This month has been constant work. I was in Maryland just this past weekend organizing with United Workers. Incredibly good stuff. Very fun. Incredibly cool to work with the same folks that march with Martin Luther King Jr. and all these other storied folks and members of the struggle, and it's so good. It's so very good to be in that space, especially with as crazy as things have been around right now. It's been very pleasant to be like, oh yes, I am in a place where people are all being affected by this. We're all organizing towards something better. I don't know how else to describe it except for there's a very good feeling to trying to do good work. And that's been all this weekend, but it's still been a lot of work. So I'm very much ready to relax, to vibe. But actually I've actually been doing a lot of gunpla and model painting lately, so that's been very fun. And I do know that I have a Gentry coming out this week. I do have a Gentry Delon Ain't No Fascist episode due, obviously not this Tuesday, because that's past, but this coming Tuesday. That should be very fun. There we go. Nice. Alright, I'd say we're looking pretty good here. Jack that up to max. Nice. That looks actually pretty good. I'm gonna go in here with my eraser, just very little bit, just a teensy little bit. A small amount. Put that on 25. And I'm just gonna put the dark spots back onto it so that it reads a little better. There we go. We want the geometry of these to be correct. So that it reads like spines. Print that shit on a piece of paper and smother it in pasta sauce. Your art looks so good I want to physically eat it. Oh, that's sweet. Same energy as, what was the Megamind quote? Wrap it up with a bow and put it under someone's tree for Christmas, cause it's done. Oh man, I appreciate that so much. It's been a lot of like me agonizing over how I'm gonna draw this sort of stuff. Drawing Terminids ain't easy. There are a lot of gribbly. And it's been very fun, but again, gribbly is intimidating at times. Very fun, lots of work though. So I really appreciate that this is hitting. It's amazing what a spray can of moss will do for making something look good. Honestly, it's incredible. Alright, so that looks pretty good. I really want to do something with the wings on the back. Could do the red. Alright, so I'm going to take a moment here. We're just going to zoom in. We're just going to call this the glow. Eye glow. And we're going to get in here and we're going to glow the hell out of this. We're going to put this as vivid light. I'm going to go to our normal spray can. Our normal acrylic brushes. I'm going to save this. And I'm going to start the glow in about here. A little strong there, wasn't it? 25. There we are. Here we go. We can put a little bit of the eye glow there, a little bit of the eye glow there. And we can now sort of hit the sharpest edge of that. And that'll give us a little more definition on the shape of this thing's face. Of its heavily armored eyes and upper fangs and that stuff right there. Okay, we're going to put this at 25, and I'm going to start drawing some vague face shape parts down here. Some vague eyelids. You don't need to see every detail of it, just enough to know there is a face under here. Because again, shy guy, but like, you know, shy guy with facial definition a little more. There we go. Almost crab-like under there. Which I kind of like. That's a pretty good vibe. Spray can of moss, couple steps away, recreating this plot of a cloud. Recreating the plot cloudy of a chance of meatballs. Ah, yes. What was the line again? It was, when it rains, you put on a coat of spray-on shoes, and then, you know, explosions. Very good stuff. Love that. Love that movie. Legitimately, never a joke about that. Like, I actually really loved that movie. I remember watching it the first time being like, oh my god, I vibe so hard with Flint Lockwood. An unbelievable amount. With how hard I feel his energy every day of like, oh yes, the autistic hyperfocus is strong today. I wonder what I can create. Oh man. Flint's a whole mood. Also, I love anyone as animated as that. Like, the movie was so unapologetically animated and fun, and it was just so good. There we go. So we're looking pretty good now with this. And then we just take the spines. Nice. Alright, we've got good definition here. There's a good energy in the gym. And now we just gotta carve the rest of this out. So I'm gonna put this at 100. And we're gonna just start carving away where we can. Okay, so we should get into the shade layer. I really want to do like a deeper, darker Terminid color here, so we're gonna go to probably about here. There we are. Let's get that darkest shade of Terminid flesh going on here. Then we can sort of just add that in. Add the little bits of that in. Beautiful. Let's get a little more darkness on the underside of these. I want these to be a little shadier, just a hair. Cool. Alright, so we've got a pretty wicked effect here. I'm going to add some glow onto this. We're going to go to the Terminate Glow. Because I want to have this thing have, like, a very powerful internal glow. I like the idea that these are very much... These things are very much, like, illuminated from the interior because of how much E710 it takes for them to be so, like, intelligent. So communicative. Much in the same way that, like, the larger an animal gets, usually the hotter its internal body temperature becomes, unless it's particularly cold-blooded. And even then, there's, like, a serious heat variance that occurs. So this guy's gonna glow from inside like someone has a torch on him. Alright, that's pretty good. That's pretty good indeed. Let's get that bright yellow on here. There we are. Nice. Alright, that's vivid. Yeah, exactly. Pre-cooked Terminid. Very, very gummy worm. They're very gummy worm-esque. And I kind of dig that. I've also gone with a very, like, leaf hoppery kind of look before. Maybe that's what I do with these things. I make them leaf hoppery. As opposed to, like, the back swept wings, give them, like, the big thorn on their back. I think that might look good. Let's play with that. Let's play with that very fast. So we're gonna go to normal. I'm gonna go into the back. I'm just gonna 75. I believe I said 75 normal. Thank you. That might be the better decision here. Let's go into our general shape here. Let's power a lot of this away. Shade layer. Yeah, I think that's the solution. Yeah, I'm just going to give it a really big thorn back. We're going to go into that shade layer. We're going to erase that. Go into the shadow layer. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll have their wings really neatly tucked up. So these things are almost... Maybe these burrow instead of... Ooh, okay. Hear me out. So a lot of the emissary strain from the webcomic are built around this, like, very specific kind of burrowing mechanic so far. So I like the idea already that they have a lot of warriors. They have a lot of, like, the little weedy guys. I can't remember what they're called. Not the stalkers. The teensy ones. The smallest of Terminids. I'll remember them later. Hold on. What are they called again? I'm literally looking them up. Scavengers. Scavengers. They have, like, tons of scavengers, tons of warriors. They have tons of, like, chargers, and they even have their own, like, variation in a hive guard. But, also impalers. I want impalers. And probably a Bile Titan or two, because that can be fun. But I really like the idea, probably more than damn near anything, that almost everything burrows. And not just to emerge to attack, but they burrow away. So maybe that's what this guy does. This guy, like, leaps up, shoots darts at somebody, skitters away, slowly camouflaging with the intent to lure them away. And then when it's significantly far enough away to actually be invisible, it goes invisible and it burrows, and it stalks them and it pops up later and pulls them in a different direction. I really like that. So you get a little bit of the Impaler vibe again. I dig that. I think that might work. That might really work for this. This will give a very dynamic enemy design sort of approach. And yes, is this for a webcomic and it doesn't matter? Yes, it is just for a webcomic and it doesn't matter. No one's gonna ever fight these guys unless I get a call from Arrowhead. And if that's the case, then, hey Arrowhead, call me. I'll do this shit for fun. I would not mind a little money, but like, if you ever want to sponsor, please don't hesitate. In the meantime, though, like, I think that could be a really fun mechanic. They're just like, oh yeah, these guys literally pop up, drive people nuts, and then once they're sufficiently bogged down hunting them, disappear, and then pop up in another location to draw them together. I think that could be very funny. Like, oh no, the hive structure's being attacked. Quickly! And then all the Terminids are like... Many of the Terminids burrow, but these little guys sprint out to cause maximum havoc. Okay, so we got the general shape. We need the shade layer. Alright, so I'm going to give them the big, heavily armored back carapace here. I'm going to need to go back over this layer here again, but it's fine. We can make it work. Sounds like the worst combination of a Glyphid Stalker Menace and a Mactera Grabber. Yeah, basically, it's the worst of all worlds for anyone who's fighting them, but that's the point. You're to have fun, right? Helldivers isn't fun because it's easy. Helldivers is fun because it's a nightmare. You get the experience of landing on Klendathu first. Or fighting, you know, the Terminators first. Who doesn't want that experience? I do. Okay, no, I actually don't. That's a lie. I don't want to suffer like that, but I'll gladly be the second guys in. After someone's already released the guide. The Uplifting Super Earth Infantryman's Primer. Something like that. Here we go. And we're gonna go just one step over, grab that gray. Yeah, I like that. So these guys are purely burrowers. If they have wings, they're tucked under a very hard casing. And they're not very visible. So let's get to our emissary colors here. We're going to go back to our spray and splatter pattern thing. Okay, so all the way down to the bottom, grab this bad boy, and just sort of catch it where we can. We're going to do the next layer up. Do it again. Do it again. And then finally, one last time. Then we just take that, reduce the opacity so that it's actually visible, save it. Saved. Good. And then we erase. That should carve it down to fit right on the edge of the exoskeleton. And we stick that at max again. Beautiful. Okay, I'm really glad I made the call to have these guys not fly. Play Kenshi recreationally, so I guess I can complain. That's fair. Yeah. No, I got you. Alright. So we got these guys here. What are we gonna do for a name? Because we're about to sign off. We've been going for a bit. This is about where I normally start plugging off. So let's get the name going. Let's turn off our swatches and go back to our name layer. Go to our text section here. Okay. I feel like there's a word for this. Someone who lures away. Let's find some interesting alternative words for decoy, shall we? Let's see. We're going to go to thesaurus.com because thesaurus.com is the tool for this. So let's see. Before we have the Myrmidon, maybe that's what we do. Myrmidons, I believe, are Greek? Yes. Greek trickster. Myth. Mythological creatures. So what do we got? We're not going by the gods. That's unacceptable. So let's see. Greek mythological creatures. I'm just going to flip through them here because we do have the Myrmidons, who were technically, they were, you know, mythological of a sort. So let's see what we have. So we have multi-headed dogs, the Minotaur, the Manticore. Ooh, Manticore's interesting, but no, I'm not going to use Manticore. I'll save that for something else later. Ooh. Okay. Koboloi. I like that. So Koboloi are the plural, so this would be a Kobolos. So, Kobolos. Those of you curious, what the hell is a Kobolos? I'm also curious what the hell a Kobolos is. However, I'm just going to, paste this here. Perfect. So the Kobolos is a sprite from Greek mythology, a mysterious creature fond of tricking and frightening mortals, which is perfect for what we're talking about here. There's also Kelpies and stuff like that, but I'm not sure I want to do like a Kelpie. And griffins fly, which I don't want to do. Yeah, I think we'll stick with like Kobolos or something. If I can find something just a little bit more like Chimera could do. Chimeras are interesting. I kind of like the Kobolos, though. That would work. The whole thing I'm thinking about is, like, mythological creatures that a bunch of dorks would use to describe this monster. Like, the sort of thing that someone who's playing a tabletop game of, like, D&D with his friends, who happens to be a Terminated Scientist, would come up with. Because I imagine they are exactly that. Sphinx? I kind of like that. A Terminid Sphinx? Mythological insects. So let's see. Transformations. I know we had the Myrmidons. I guess if that's the case, then either a Sphinx. Yeah, I think a Sphinx is the right call for this thing. Because they're supposed to be confusing, and they're guardians. So we'll use a Sphinx for this. Alright, so Emissary Strain Terminid Morph. How big are the standard ones? That's my only question now. Your standard Terminid Stalker. Okay. So going by the scale of what we're talking about, they say moderately large. In terms of how big these things are, if you look at how large the Stalkers are, let's take a look at their concept art. This is kind of what I'm going on the basis of, like the original Stalker design. And they have the grappling tendrils that, I'm gonna tickle you, kind of deal, which is hilarious to me. So if that's the case, then we're looking at Helldiver standing 6 foot tall. I'm being generous here. Particularly generous. So we're probably looking at closer to about 12 feet at the hump. That's about right. So if we break that down into meters, that's 4 meters long, but this thing is almost twice as long as it is tall. At least half again as long. So that means it would be 18? 18 divided by 3? Which would be 9 18, so then multiply that by 3. Oh, okay, so that's 6 meters? Woo! I think that feels fine. So we're going to go with 6 meters tall. Or 6 meters long. What do we got up here for the other Myrmidons? Alright, we need to turn that off and turn this on. Okay, so heavily armored ambush vehicle. So here we go. Ambush slash ambush predator slash, I guess, a decoy termiform. Ambush disruption. Okay. We'll say this thing is moderately armored, but it has chromatophores, so it's actually invisible. So yes, we'll have that. So, medium armor. Medium armored, and we'll also add the invisibility part here as well, because I think that's relevant. Camouflage. Chromatophore. Based camouflage. I'm sure I misspelled that. It's chromatophore. I wonder if it's chromatophore with a single? What's the single of chromatophore? Chromatophore with an E. There is an E there. Chromatophore camouflage. Not flage. Flage. There we go. All right. Ambush disruptor. I like that. So we have this creature that literally pops up out of the dirt, causes all sorts of chaos, and then it disappears again. I love that. So there we go. So we have the Sphinx now. Concept 4, Sphinx. And I'll work on the name. We'll figure out some more details about it. Because I like the Myrmidon, but this is going to take some thinking on. Poltergeist also could work, but yeah. I'll think on the idea on the design. So, without further ado, I'm just going to put a little asterisk there so I know, like, name subject to change. Alright, and we can turn the Myrmidon off. Beautiful. And let's put our watermark where it belongs. Here we go. Yeah, I'll put that, like, somewhere nice and hard to remove. There we go. That'll do. Alright. And then with that, we've got ourselves a lovely Terminid Bioform for the Terminid Restoration Alliance, which looks like it sits pretty neatly with the Myrmidon. I kind of want to add more, like, highlighting to this thing, and I'll probably do so later. I just want to make sure I've got this, like, at a reasonable layer here, so we're good. Let's hit a... I'm doing the mistake of going back in. No, chat. No, I'm doing it. It's a terrible decision. Someone stop me. Please. No. It's too late for me. It's too late for me. I've been lost. I lost this fight, chat. It's never going to happen again. Curses. Okay. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It'll be alright. I just gotta suffer for a bit. Okay. So let's see. So we're gonna go to this. Put that at 25. Alright. Let's try. Let's try to finish this off a little bit. I'm doing it. I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm so terrible. Why can't I just sleep? Okay. It's because I care. That's the problem. I care. I know I care. It's a dangerous thing to give a damn. Alright, so we're pretty good on that. And then we're going to go above it with that nice shade of white. 75. We'll put it at 45. And we can reduce the opacity of this as we need. This will just give me the ability to properly sort of lay this out a little bit more. Beautiful. Alright. I can see where this is going to head into another 30-45 minutes of drawing. So with that, I'm going to bail. Folks, take care. Have a good one. Much love. And keep an eye out because our next episode of Gentry Delon Ain't No Fascist is dropping next week on the 19th. So stay tuned for that. And for those of you guys who make the comic possible by being my patrons, Ampersand, Atlas, and Heinrich at Tier 1, as well as Necronymous and Souls Rolls, plus all the people who join my Patreon and aren't on a paid tier. I appreciate all of you. Every person who donates, it makes a world of difference. This is my only real source of income, and I and my family appreciate everything you can give me. Thank you guys so much. Take care, and I'll see you out there, Voyagers. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share, because I'm still on YouTube and I'm really tiny, and I'd like to bulk those numbers up. Take care, everybody, and peace.